everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather, and today my mother is back with us in honor of Nonfiction November to give us more of her more recent favorite books.
Yes. This is something that I would not have ordinarily chosen for myself. Heather bought this for her father for his birthday or Christmas. Prisoners of Geography by Tim Marshall. It's fascinating. My favorite professor in college, one of his big sayings was, "Geography is destiny." And that's exactly what this is all about. It's all about portraits of major countries, China, United States, Russia, etc., and how geography has played an enormous role in their development and their place in history. It's fascinating. I really liked it. I even did a display at the library featuring this book. And it's been very popular, I'm happy to say. But I would recommend this book. It's an eye-opening experience. I really liked it. And we love David Mitchell in this house. We think he's very clever. And right around Christmas time, he wrote this one, Unruly. It's an interesting, if irreverent, view of the royal families and everybody that ruled in England from the beginning. Even before William the Conqueror, he takes in all of the Saxon and earlier kings, right up to Elizabeth I. He felt like after that things started to change, so he only went that far. Fascinating, funny, really interesting. I enjoyed it very much. Okay, next we have The White Ship by Charles Spencer, brother of Princess Diana. He's a fine author. I've read a few things that he's written and I really enjoyed them. This is all about the disaster of the White Ship during the time of Henry I. It's all about the royal party and their trip from Barfleur in France to England. And the Henry I's son and heir, William I, got on. It was basically a party boat. They were having entirely too much fun. Never really made it out of the harbor, hit a rock, the ship went down like a rock, and what a disaster for that family. And they struggled for quite some time with everything that happened afterwards. It was really interesting and I liked it, and I feel like nobody really knows about this time period. This is, the prelude to the problems with King Stephen and his cousin Matilda, because of course Matilda was also Henry's child, and it was very interesting and I liked it. I think he writes well. He's written another one recently on, I think, Charles I. No, I take it back, it was about Charles II. I really enjoyed that one too. He's a good author. I like Charles Spencer. Now, it has been established that Dan Jones is one of my very favorite authors, and I think I did speak about both The Plantagenets and The War of the Roses. But recently, just last month, I did not realize that he had planned it as a trilogy. This is the middle bit that completes the trilogy. He found Henry V so interesting that he thought he really did need to just devote one single volume to his amazing life. I haven't finished it yet. It's very good. It's your standard, I don't want to say your standard Dan Jones, but it's a book that you kind of can fall into. He makes everyone feel very real, very human, and as I said, he's one of my very favorites, and I'm enjoying this very month. I would highly recommend this one. It has also been established I have an unhealthy interest in the Tudors, and I don't even remember where I found this book. And it's a monster. It's a doorstop. It took me a while to get through it, even though I do have a fair amount of knowledge about the Tudors. But this was fascinating. I really, really liked it. I've never heard of Lucy Wooding, but I think she writes well. It's great. It's all of the people. It's all of the battles. It's all of everything that happened to establish the Tudor dynasty. It's great. I like it. If you have a fascination for the Tudors, I would highly recommend this one. And also, on a similar note, it has also been established that I love Tracy Borman. Did I buy this one in New York at
Yes, at McNally Jackson.
At McNally Jackson. If you're anywhere in the New York area, I think we would both recommend McNally Jackson. It is a really nice bookstore. And I bought this. And is it like the other one? Yes, but it's more about the social customs, how they got up in the morning, who helped them get dressed, what they ate, what what colors people were allowed to wear depending on where you fell in the social strata of the Tudor court. Those kinds of things. Not politics, of course, comes into it, but it's more of the human side of living at the Tudor court. And I liked it. It was really very interesting. And I also think on another episode that I did with Heather, I talked about my fascination also with Thomas Cromwell. And I was trying to read the Dartmouth McCulloch book, which was a doorstop. After 3 years, I finally gave up. I couldn't do it. It was just too detailed, even for me. So, of course, what did I do? I went out and I bought this, Thomas Cromwell, also by Tracy Borman. This was much easier to handle. Not quite the doorstop. Every bit is good. I felt like when I finished it, I really did understand Thomas Cromwell, and I would still invite him for dinner. He was very interesting. Don't know if I'd agreed with absolutely everything he chose to do, but I still think very interesting, and I liked him a lot. This was a good book. Moving on, Heather bought this book for me for Christmas last year, Hunting the Falcon by John Guy. I've only read one other thing. I think he wrote a biography of Mary Queen of Scots, if I remember correctly. This is really wonderful. This is a better look at Anne Boleyn. This is not the witch, the evil woman. It paints her as a woman of her time, an educated woman, and someone who was, I don't know how many choices she had, really, in terms of, I think there was some spite involved. I really think she was very annoyed that she couldn't marry the love of her life, Henry Percy. She certainly didn't want to go and marry into Ireland because that was the first plan that they had for her. So, yeah, there was probably some spite involved in this. But this made her feel more human to me. And I would never invite Henry VIII for dinner, but I think Anne Boleyn could have been interesting to have over. A really nice, I think a kind of an even look at Anne Boleyn. It was a good book. I think you bought this one for me as well.
Mm-hmm. I will say most of the recommendations I get for you come from Claire Fenby's channel. If you're not already watching her, if you're enjoying these kinds of books, check out hers as well.
Oh yes, Claire, she reads some nice books. And she goes to nice places to purchase these books. I would like to live her life.
That too.
Yes.
There we are.
But anyway, Young, Damned, and the Fair by Gareth Russell. Never read anything by Gareth Russell. I really liked this book. It was all about Catherine Howard. They weren't married for very long. She was very young, and she's usually, and not to put too fine a point on it, they usually paint her as kind of a slut. Did she make bad choices? Probably. Certainly the end was, but she was basically an abused child. She was dragged up, ignored by most of her family, not given any education whatsoever, really didn't know much about court life, and suddenly they push her in front of the king, and she's beautiful and she's young, and he still thinks he's a handsome young stallion that everyone will want. He was not at that time. And it's a very sympathetic portrait of this poor girl. You just feel so sorry for her. It's a disaster. It's a train wreck. You see it coming. But nevertheless, it was a good read. I did enjoy it. Okay. I was not familiar with Anna Whitelock. This is Mary Tudor, England's first queen. A nice book. I've read other biographies of Mary Tudor. I'm still not, she had a terrible life. The poor thing, everything that she went through. This was sympathetic, and you do have to feel sorry for her. I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as the other one. I don't know why that is, because she was a very intelligent woman. She had many gifts and many talents. Eventually, she did get back to living in the court. Certainly at the beginning, her parents loved her and cherished her, and then there was all of that nonsense that came afterwards. She did regain a foothold in the royal court. She did love children. She loved Edward. She thought he was quite wonderful, and I think she almost kind of treated him as hers. Of course, after a while, he was taken away, had to be raised by men after a certain point. But I liked her. I felt sorry for her is what it boils down to. I don't know if I would invite her for dinner, but I did feel sorry for her. As much as she was the queen, she was still a pawn, and you have to feel sorry for her. She tried hard. Okay, now these two are sort of related to one another. I didn't know a great deal about Catherine de Medici, and I never really thought about how her life was entangled and entwined with the Tudor court. But of course, she was a contemporary of Elizabeth I. So there's this one that was really good. Fire, Blood, and Gold by Estelle
Parank?
Parank, by Estelle Parank. And it's a dual biography of both Catherine de Medici and Elizabeth I. Absolutely fascinating. I read it ages ago, but I know I really, really enjoyed it. Because while I know a good deal about Elizabeth, I didn't not know very much about Catherine de Medici. What a life she had, and a wheeler dealer, and she did everything in her power to make sure her sons, stayed on the throne and ruled England and ruled France. She had a lot of stuff going on. There was the whole rise of Protestantism, and of course she was a devout Catholic, but she was also pragmatic. And I thought that was interesting. That surprised me. So there are bits of their correspondence. It was a good book. I really, really liked it. And this was very popular this year. I think it came out around Christmas time. Young Queens by Leah Redmond Chang. And it's Catherine de Medici, her daughter-in-law, Mary Queen of Scots, and her daughter, I believe it was the Princess Elizabeth, and I think she ended up in Spain. And of course, Mary Queen of Scots and Princess Elizabeth, they grew up together, they were raised as siblings, and it's their lives, how they grew up together in the French court, and what happened to them afterwards, and their ties to Catherine de Medici. Dynastic struggles, problems with religion, childbirth, all sorts of things that, women had to deal with, women still have to deal with. But these were women in positions of power, and their lives were played out in front of the world. It was a fascinating book. I really, really liked it. And last but not least, you found this book for me someplace, didn't you?
It's a book sale.
It's a book sale book.
Yeah.
Royal Charles by Antonia Fraser. It has been established that I do love Antonia Fraser. But this is about Charles II and the Restoration. It's the second book now that I've read about Charles II and the Restoration. He's fascinating. I had no idea. I read the Charles Spencer book first, and then Heather found this for me at a bookstore. Absolutely amazing, because the Restoration is a time period I'm not as familiar with, but I think that has to change. I think I have to read a little bit more about it. It's your I don't want to say it's your standard Antonia Fraser, but it kind of is. Again, you fall into it. She is very interested in people, politics, of course, but people. And I subscribe to the theory of great people rather than great events. I would rather read about great people and how the events formed them rather than the events forming the people. It's a personal preference.
Or how they informed the events as well. What they had been through that would make them look at things a certain way or make certain decisions.
It was really, I really did not know much about him except that his amazing escape to France after his father was captured. I think that was really the crux of the Charles Spencer book. It was his escape to France. And he was, 3 to 4 weeks on the run, hiding in borrowed clothing, climbing trees, trying to get to a port and being blocked, all sorts of things. It sounds like fiction, but it really happened. And this is that and more. And when he got to France and he was reunited with his mother and everything that happened after that, and his relations with, the folks on the Dutch throne, and how he got back to England and became king again. It was fascinating. I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like now, having read ages ago a book on Charles I and then Charles II, I have to do the Jameses. I have not done the Jameses, so I think that's going to be my next project. And I'll keep you informed. Truthfully, right now, I am not aware of biographies of James I and James II. There must be out there.
They must
I
be.
can't imagine that they would be ignored. I'm not familiar with them yet, but I will let you know.
And what about that Cromwell as well?
That's
That
true.
would complete the Stuart sandwich.
That would complete the Stuart sandwich. I know very little about Oliver Cromwell.
There we go.
Except I remember Dr. Courtmarsh saying that at one point, Oliver Cromwell was so disgusted with the way things were in England, he very nearly emigrated to the New World.
Oh, God.
And I thought, oh, it's one of those things of what if? What if Oliver Cromwell had gotten on that ship and came to the New World? What would have happened in England? What would have happened in the New World? I don't know. But clearly he did not. He stayed and, in my humble opinion, made a mess of things. But that's for another story. But you're right, I should read about that Cromwell.
Honestly, spending as much time as we did on the Puritans in English class, I don't know that very much would have changed over here if he had come here.
I hope you're right.
They were fairly tyrannical over here to start with.
They were, but things changed,
Yeah.
and things changed very quickly. They thought they were going to come and create this new Eden, and it didn't last very long. So, it's
Surprise, surprise. People still want power.
people want power, people want joy, people want song, dance, and laughter. It's not a terrible thing. So there we are. But I will keep you posted on my completion of the Stuart sandwich. That's it for the moment.
I have to say, there are a few of those on my list. When that's going to happen, I don't know. I realize I always say that in all of these videos, but...
Well, they're right here on the shelves
I know.
whenever you're ready for
I know,
them.
but thank you for sharing those with us. I
You're
always
welcome.
enjoy having you here, and I know you all do too. So if you have comments or questions for us, please leave them down below, and I will answer them or relay them to you to answer them. Also, speaking of Stuart sandwiches, if you have any recommendations for
Yes.
biographies of the Jameses or Oliver
Oliver
Cromwell,
Cromwell.
let
yes.
us know as well, and
Oh,
we
I'd love
will
to know.
add those to our list.
Yep.
But until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye, everyone.
Toodaloo.